Good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group with your end of day recap. And what a crazy day it was. Very difficult to talk trading, but not so much politics because obviously it's affecting our markets right now. Moderating a trading room all day long too, and trying to dance around politics is not easy. But this is what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So, to not talk about the elephant in the room is kind of tough. But so, you're going to hear a lot about this and that, and we've been hearing this all week long. If they got a no vote, and for the healthcare, it was going to bring markets down. Before we kind of start with the chart analysis, just keep in mind talking heads on different financial media stations. Just keep in mind that a lot of the predictions are wrong. We know this these things are very fresh in our mind from last year. You don't even have to go back 5 years. I mean, look at the Brexit last year. Everybody said the market was going to tank and it was going to be horrible. Same thing with the election. If Trump was going to win, the markets were going to sell off 5%. It's going to be horrible. So, we just heard this. I listen to some of these shows too for their entertainment value. Do not make, again, I'm not giving this video is for information only, but do not listen to these guys on TV who are like, the market's going to sell off on this if they don't get the vote. you know um of course, we're going to have jumpy markets and we're going to have whipsaw markets, and there's going to be knee-jerk reactions. That, I think, is something that we're going to see, but usually these things shake out. The market doesn't like uncertainty. That's one thing that we know. So whenever there's a little bit of uncertainty, you always see the VIX go up. The VIX will start to climb when there's a bit of uncertainty. And then once the uncertainty comes out and once the drama is a little bit over, the market continues with the direction that it wants to go. So that's my 2 minutes of soapbox. Taking a couple observations from this week is, from Tuesday, obviously we had this big 1% down day. Not so much damage, no major damage done on the S&P chart. However, some areas are looking weaker than others, and some areas are looking stronger than others. So I think you kind of have to analyze these areas in a case-by-case situation and want to know what areas you should really be in, or what areas are strong and what areas are breaking down and are weak. So first things first, S&P managed to stay above the trend line. Very nicely done there. If we look at, let's see, let's bring up, I don't have the 100-day moving average on here, but we could look at SPY. All right, let's just do it this way. And you can basically see we're holding the 50-day moving average, right? So it is what it is. We're very close. And I'm not going to make a prediction here. I'm going to let price be my guide, and we'll just basically see. Either one of two things is going to happen here next week. Next week is also a big week. It's going to be quarter end, so there's going to be probably some decent volume, I would suspect, especially towards the end of the week. But I'm not going to say, hey, we're going to bounce on the 50-day moving average. I'm not going to say we're going to break either. I think we're at a really crucial decision point, and it's going to go it's going to go one way or another. And I would rather be a little bit late than try to be early and wrong, as I say all the time. So that's where we're at with this one. And also it's also coinciding with the uptrend line. IWM's a little bit different. So small caps, which I think are very important to watch right now, and that's really what we've been focusing on, are just on the 100-day moving average. So we have to see what's going to happen here. Either it's going to bounce and move away from the 100-day moving average, or it's going to break down. We don't really know yet. Another area I would say that looks really weak to me right now is steel names. They're breaking the 100-day moving average. So they have broken. They're one of the areas of the market that has been has had a really nice trade or really nice move up. And just because we break the 100-day moving average doesn't mean it's game over. It's really the 200-day that's important, but we've got a lot of distance to go there. U.S. Steel also broke. AKS Steel broke last a couple weeks ago, I believe. and that's headed to the 100 to the 200-day moving average. Notice the 50 crossing below the 100. So again, not the best sign for this area of the market. Materials were also pretty weak today. They were one of the first ones. Whenever there's a little bit of volatility, what observation to always make is what areas hold up very well and what areas break down. I would rather be in the stronger areas and be in those places that are going to bounce nicely as soon as things kind of move start to move up or start to move down. Those are a little bit more defensive. So speaking of probably the strongest area of the market right now is semis. Obviously Micron came out with some really nice earnings and nice price reaction. It brought a couple groups up, but we're continuing to see call buying in either names. I mean, the Micron was there was call buying day after day after day. I mean, just huge call buying. I usually I usually get out of any trades going into earnings, or I hedge them 100%. And I actually held Micron just because there was so much call buying. So I just couldn't ignore the amount of call buying that had gone on over the last couple of weeks in Micron. So I stayed in that trade, hit a nice winner. I was also long long Western Digital as well, which I figured I was full well. Knew that it was going to have a reaction to the Micron earnings as well. So I didn't hold, full positions of what I've been holding for Micron and Western Digital. I trimmed those positions down a little bit. But that's where the strength is, and we continue to see. We've been seeing call buying in CY Cyprus the last couple days. That was a trade that didn't close on the highs, but a nice winner in the trading room. Continuing to make higher highs and higher lows. And above the 50-day moving average. We saw some ON calls go up today. This is another semi name, finding some support at the 50-day moving average. So, I've mentioned in these videos, especially after Tuesday, I said, hey, I don't know if we're going to have a couple days of volatility after Tuesday. Let the tape kind of be your guide into what areas of the market that you want to go into. What areas are they aggressively buying? And it's been semis, and they're the strongest area right now. Other than that, it's been some buying in some tech names. A little bit of buying here and there. We'll kind of go over a couple other names. We did see some nice buying in the beginning of the day. SUN, which is a material name, we saw some buying in this one. I want to go over this chart in CMCM, but before I talk about, I don't want to abandon the macro. Just the other thing to realize as well is, again, we're not closing on the highs yet. So I view that as a negative. We haven't been able to do that the last 3 days. So again, I don't think we've turned the corner since, kind of breaking down here a bit. So just to kind of reiterate, I think I'm completely undecided and want to wait a little bit for some price confirmation before I make just an outright guess and go long one way or another. The other thing is, just kind of repeating some of the things that I said in the trading room today. I would expect, I fully expected this today, that we were going to have a couple knee-jerk reactions. Just be careful of your positions. I started the midday session. The very first thing I said once we came on, I said, hey, the market is up. And we've got this little, elephant in the room that this healthcare vote is going to happen sometime in the afternoon. Obviously, we didn't know that it was going to be postponed, but there's no reason to carry extra risk here and short dated risk, because all it takes, if you have something really short dated where you're not holding something out for, if you trade options like we do, having really short dated stuff is going to be really super sensitive. And all it takes is a couple knee jerk reactions, and you could walk away from your screens for 5 minutes and your P&L is going to be flipped around the other way very quickly. So just be very cognizant of that while the politics are still going on. My guess is that this probably gets revisited sometime in the beginning of next week with this healthcare. I don't think this is over by any means. So just be very cognizant of your risk and how much you can lose, not how much you can gain, but how much you can lose by another political headline coming up, and the market gets upset about it for a couple hours, and then you're like, oh man, why didn't I sell, or why do I have these positions on? So just bear in mind, you don't want to be caught. with your pants down because you have too many short dated positions and the market decides to veer off one way. So again, besides the political stuff, we've got a big week next week with quarter end. So just besides, we talked about S&P, we talked about small caps. Nasdaq was the leader today. Nasdaq looks a little bit more healthy. Again, didn't finish on the highs, but we're above the value area, and I would say Qs are the strongest right now, along with that technology semis that we talked about as well. So pretty strong looking chart. Again, the only thing I don't like is we didn't close on the highs, but we started to turn the corner back up. So you also have to think about too, if the noise wasn't there, how would we have finished for the day? So you can kind of go back and forth with this argument. My take is to kind of let this absorb a little bit and wait for some true confirmation. Again, this price action, even though it's more positive than S&P and small caps, this yellow line, the price barely closed above the yellow line. So that's basically by a thread. So that's by things that are hanging on by threads. I don't really want to go all in on, but besides that, oil looked like it was going to be very iffy as well. It did have an update. It finished. It finally did not completely lose the early bid that it had. That it's been fading for the last couple weeks, and even up here. But nothing really changes here in oil. The fact that it didn't break down, I guess, is a positive. But we're still way below all the short-term moving averages, so that's not positive. Another area that looks like it's a little bit vulnerable, we talked about steel was iffy. Also the financials, let's see where they finished for the day, right on the 100-day moving average as well. So just, kind of caught between the 100 and the 50-day right now. My worry is that if you do break that 100-day moving average, you got a long way to get to that 200-day moving average. That's a decent amount. That's a decent clip down, and that will really affect the S&P because it's the second biggest weight in the S&P. I apologize. I think I said last weekend that it was the top weight. It's the second weight. Tech is the highest weight in the S&P. So that's where we stand. A couple interesting trades for today. So I mentioned I was going to go over a couple single names. We saw some calls in this name. This is another Chinese ATR where it seems like there's also some strength in this market. You go back out, 1-year chart. We popped above the 100 and the 200. Sorry, it's late. It's Friday. The 100 and the 200-day moving average we popped above and are returning back to the 200-day. You got the 50-day crossing over the 100. If the 50-day crosses above the 200, that would be really nice. But nice call buyer in this one today. Aggressive call buyer. Right when CM. So I will probably give this stock a shot next week in cash. I've got a special trend cash portfolio that I'm showing all the subscribers that is using a particular trend guideline to it. And the other thing I like with this is the volume, but also you go back and you look at 5 years, and you can see the stock was at one point a $30 stock. So the fact that it hasn't been over the 200-day moving average since when? A while back in 2015. So I think that's positive. CIT, we saw a lot of calls trade in this one. I took a shot at this one. It's really short dated, so I should be practicing a little bit what I'm preaching and not holding short dated positions. But there's 18,000 calls that went up in this one, so I'll probably hold this one for a few days. Also, I mentioned ON, nice call buyer in this one. About 4,000 contracts went up. Not a sweep. Both of these were not sweeps, but again, they were pretty big blocks. That was a 4,000 block. And then another ETF that I thought was interesting is Italy. We saw this was not a big trade at all, but again, half the time I'm just looking for ideas. Something where somebody comes in and aggressively buys something, kind of wakes me up to a chart and says, "Hey, what's going on with this name?" I actually have this in Thinkorswim where I actually put a trend line. I analyzed this one. So I didn't take any trades today in my cash portfolio today. But look at where this thing is. This dotted line, if it gets over this hump, and that's kind of what I'm waiting for in Italy, you got a possibility. We really don't have any major resistance until we get back back into this range up above 27. So that's a nice little percentage move if we can climb above that. So that's what I'm watching in Italy. And again, those areas of the market, Europe and emerging markets, are where we really have some strength right now. That's also a place I finally started to hear people talk about that a little bit, where people are really getting worried. Again, we talked about in the beginning of the video how the talking heads on in financial media are saying, this market looks weak and so forth. Well, emerging markets in Europe globally do not look weak to me. So it tells me that there's more that's going on besides this little healthcare vote that we got going on. So that's tonight's video. Thank you for watching and listening to me kind of go on about all of the noise that's been going on in the markets. But thank you for watching and have a great weekend, and look out for the weekend video. Thanks very much.